All right, thank you everyone for attending the webinar today. My name's Holly Marita and I'm with David Insurance in Wisconsin. Just a few housekeeping notes. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box and we'll try to get to them at the end. We're excited to bring you the 4-tiered webinar series, Understanding the 4 Components of Your Self-Funded Plan. Today's webinar is part 3 of 4 and focusing on reducing your pharmacy spend and hidden revenue streams. Our guest speaker, Kyle Fields, is CEO of AproRx. Kyle oversees all aspects of the daily operations and was named to the 2014 40 Under 40 of Dayton, Ohio. He's also been featured on Squawk Box on CNBC and speaks nationally on all matters pertaining to pharmacy and pharmacy benefit management. Thanks for joining us today, Kyle.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. So if you want me to just dive in, I'll go ahead and dive in because there's PBM is one of those interesting industries that's it's almost a $500 billion industry that no one knows anything about. But so as I get into this, I definitely want questions. I want to be challenged. There's no dumb questions, and the more we have the discussion, the better. And feel free to submit any questions to David Insurance or me, and we'll make sure that we get them answered for you. Because there's definitely solutions, and there's definitely answers to those questions that are probably stumping a lot of people and a lot of employers in your future and existing clients today. But hopefully everyone can see my screen. And AproRx, basically, we'll start with the name. It's short for appropriate prescription. There's everybody's fighting over the rebates. Everybody's fighting over, pricing, which is all good, all noble, all necessary, needed, required. Money is the universal language of business. But what people are lacking and what people are missing out on is the clinical, is the efficacy, the efficiency of a PBM. Is there any management, or are there any managers in pharmacy benefit management or in a pharmacy benefit manager? Arguably, no. And that's where we came up with, when I say we, my brother and I, Ken Fields, came up with AproRx, because there needs to be appropriate prescriptions in the pharmacy space. Because you can have a great price on a medication for a patient. It could be a great price on a $5 med, or it could be a great price on a literally $5 million med. But is it the right medication? We don't know. As in, the industry doesn't know. And that's where we came in and actually put pharmacists back in charge of pharmacy. It seems like a unusual or overly simplistic solution, but it's a solution that works, and it's a solution we've gotten away from. So as we built our PBM, which right now we have over 1,000 individual clients, we're managing over 150,000 covered lives across the United States. We have a full 68,000 pharmacy network, and we've been able to grow almost exponentially with clients from as low as 1 member to as high as 18,000, because we've been able to show clinical efficacy. We've been able to show, yes, here's a good price on a medication that we have been able to compete with against the oligarchs of the PBM industry, but we've also been able to show clinical efficacy. We've been able to show that the medicine that employer is paying for is actually working. They're getting health outcomes. They're getting better, increased presenteeism, decreased absenteeism, and all we're doing is injecting what I would say is common knowledge for a pharmacy graduate out of a pharmacy school, to make sure that the patients are taking their medication, they're taking it correctly, it's being prescribed correctly, it's being dosed correctly, and it's being delivered correctly. And it is as simple as it sounds, but it's amazing how complex and how far away we've gotten away from actual pharmacy. So, and as PBMs, as we'll show here, have gained control of the industry, we obviously know that the model's broken. But what's the solution? Everybody's fighting over rebates, the shiny object. Everybody's fighting over pricing. Again, needed, necessary, required. But where the real savings come in is eliminating things off of a formulary that have no earthly business being there, by making sure that a patient's taking the correct medication for that particular disease state, and then monitoring it. So, but we've gotten away from that. So PBMs, let me get the right slide here. PBMs have become gatekeepers, unfortunately. And if there's a drug that came out that would cure disease X, the PBMs would be the gatekeepers of that drug hitting the marketplace. And they're pulling pharma executives up to Capitol Hill, and people get a bad rap, and people say, oh, all this money, drugs are expensive because direct to consumer advertising and all the commercials on Family Feud and all the commercials during the Super Bowl and that's what's driving up the cost of medications. But it's actually not. It's lack of oversight. It's lack of oversight combined with the PBM demand of rebates from drug manufacturers. So how much money is spent on marketing and advertising and direct to consumer amongst drug companies? It's a staggering number of $6 billion a year. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of money and no matter how you look at it. So, but it's a misnomer. What do I mean by that? Well, let's see the next slide here. On rebates and discounts that are controlled by the PBM, it says 150 billion here, but it's around just over 160 billion dollars a year now. 160 billion dollars. I mean, that is an industry unto itself. So things are put on formularies. Patients are told they have to get one drug over another. They have to fill brand over generic in order to meet these rebate guarantees because it's to the bottom line of the big oligarch PBMs. And we want to make sure that trend goes towards clinical and not towards what the industry has built for itself. Unfortunately and unusually, the patient's been left out here, and we want to make sure that the patient's put back in. So think about that: 150 to 160 billion dollars a year. It just dwarfs what's spent on television ads that everyone complains about. But that's what we see. Everybody complains about gas prices because we see the gas prices, and no matter where we drive. But these hidden costs that drive up the cost of medications and drive up the cost of care is because of no oversight and because of filling left pocket with the right pocket in the PBM industry. So as we identify the profit sources, over the years for PBMs, we look at how we combat that. And again, I keep going. The solution is the clinically based PBM. Yes, PBMs make money. I'm a capitalist. I want God bless America. I love the land of opportunity, but I want to make sure that I do it in the right way. One of our not unofficial taglines is we want to do business with no black eyes and no orange jumpsuits. So, and I think that what we see here on this slide is unfortunately a black eye. And PBMs are sophisticated machines, and they're amazing at making money, and if not borderline printing their own money. But if we were able to actually dive into a client's data set, as I've done and as our company have done, over the last 10 years, it's amazing what you can find. And matter of fact, it has even been newsworthy of what we've been able to find in the industry. So if we go into a client, and this is this one for an example, just do a straight dive in without even getting creative. We're at over $1 million a year in savings. Just an unbelievable percentage of over costs, overruns, mismanagement, fraud, waste, and abuse that we're able to find in these plans. And this being a larger group, we've been able to do it with the smaller groups. And these smaller groups and third-party administrators and even stop-loss carriers have been gravitating towards us, but by reducing spec claims, reducing aggregate claims, because the drugs and the medicine, the RX side of things is driving up cost immensely, and the lack of oversight in the RX side is causing the medical side to go up. Forbes did a study a few years ago, and I always say I would have charged them half price for doing this study, but they came up with the conclusion that the best return on investment in an entire health plan, everything included, was for a patient to take their medicine and take it correctly. And it's kind of a oh duh moment for me because, well, yeah, I mean, the physician has diagnosed you, the physician has prescribed something for you, and yes, you're supposed to take that medicine as prescribed. but a lot of the times we don't see that because the PBM is maybe derelict in their duty and not acting as a true clinical hub, for the patient. Because sometimes you can lead a horse to water, but sometimes you got to make them drink it away. But and it just comes down to monitoring what a patient's doing with a high level of touch with the employer, with the physician, because what it comes down to is the employer is investing in their employees by paying for all these medicines, by paying for healthcare, and it's our job as a PBM to make sure that there's a return on investment. So I'll go back to our slides here again. How PBMs make money is is very sophisticated. It's very complicated, and I would say it's very savvy. But what we've tried to do is not necessarily disruptive innovation, but disruptive simplicity. So as we see, as the industry is aligning and where PBMs are forming alliances, all through the whole supply chain of pharmacy, we also want to be in that supply chain, but we again want to be a force for good. And instead of driving up our own profits, we want to make sure that we are providing a return on investment for the employers that we represent and the third-party administrators that we represent. So again, as a PBM, yes, so what we do, but I think as all PBMs should do, and there's other PBMs out there that do what we do as well, I tend to think we do a little bit better. And I think our costs and pricing is also amazing. But that being said, there are a couple others out there that have that transparency, have that true paradigm shift in the PBM space. And again, the only way that APRO-RX gets paid is through a modest disclosed administration fee. 100% pass through on all rebates, 100% pass through on no spread pricing, all pricing, and so exactly what we're getting paid. And as an employer should know exactly what a PBM is getting paid for their services over the course of 1 month, 6 months, 12 months, or the course of the entire contract. Again, we also have our patient assistance programs as most PBMs do, but again, what are they charging for that? PBM like APRO, we don't charge anything for it. And again, I'm not trying to make this too much of a commercial about APRO, but what I'm really trying to say is you need to take a look at every single cost that is being incurred by an employer, by a third-party administrator, by a broker, to make sure that you know where each and every dollar is going. And not that TPAs shouldn't make money. It's not that brokers shouldn't make money. It's just that it's disclosed. And the more we've been able to disclose that information, the more accepting and more the happy HR and the happy CFOs, like, yeah, of course, well, a broker needs to get paid a little bit here sometimes. And we understand the TPA has certain workloads that need to be done. And of course, the PBM charges for their services as well. It just comes down to where is each one of those dollars going. And when you know that, and when you look at ingredient costs and cost trends year over year, it comes down to that return on investment again. We have no problem with people making money. We just want to make sure that people are making the appropriate amount of money by taking and managing the appropriate prescriptions for that particular patient population. Again, it's disruptive simplicity. For pharmacists back in charge of pharmacy, disclose all your costs. I go to the grocery store, and when I pick out a handful of things, I get a little receipt at the end. In the PBM space, unfortunately, that's not the case. So that receipt at the grocery store says what I got, what rebates are on there, do I have any coupons, and any fees that are associated with anything is on that little sheet. And that's what we provide to our clients, and what most PBMs and all PBMs should is provide granular data on a claim by claim basis on both rebates and on each individual claim to make sure that if something goes awry or the PBM needs to be, not to say audited in the traditional sense of the word, but held accountable, that employer, that broker, that third-party administrator can. So again, I'm taking a look at the clock here, but what it comes down to is data. How do we get this done? How do we accomplish this? Get the data. If you can get 12 months of data and be able to submit that to a PBM, not necessarily for like an RFP, but really look at it from a clinical perspective, look at it from a formulary perspective, look at it, are there any patient assistance or coupons available that can reduce that overall cost and making sure that all accumulators are adjusted as well. What can be done on the administrative fee side is, are you charging for PAs? So if you can get all contract language along with a full claims data file with actionable data with the 11 points of data that you need, a PBM like us can run a repricing on that for you as if we were the PBM and show you, what was good, what was bad, what needs to be adjusted, and how to move forward. So it's as complex as it may seem. It's really comes down to getting the data. And if you can get the data is key. And we'd able to, you have a large group that you think is not being treated well. I think you'll find that the data that you're able to provide as a broker or as a third party administrator or as an employer even is newsworthy. And I assure you it is newsworthy. A lot of money in this space. So it's time to take that overages, take those that wasteful dollars and reinvest back into employers. And that's what most of our employers do is increase benefits. So it's my time. I'm not sure, but you guys tell me how far and how deep down the rabbit hole we should go.
Great, Kyle. Thank you. There is a question regarding specialty pharma. So what are most employers doing with that? Are they excluding these drugs from coverage and then covering them with an MERP plan or a Merc plan? What do you see in the industry?
We see a whole range of things. That's one of those tough questions. What do you do? Because there's the financial side of things, but there's also the human side of things. And again, as much as we want to provide coverage for employees, we can't bankrupt the company as well. We can't. But a lot of the times we've seen where employers have told us and third-party administrators told us to just completely exclude. Again, we work for the employer, so if they decide to completely exclude those, we do. And then a lot of patient assistance programs come into play. But a lot of the times, the first thing we do is we want to make sure there's clinical efficacy with those medications. We get a second opinion through our clinical staff. That is, is there any alternatives out there that we could start with first? But if there's not, and this is the drug or the medication that's required for this particular disease and disease state, at least we have peace of mind on both the prescribing, the how it's being administered, and then pricing out the best specialty pharmacy for that medication. Then we go into the patient assistance programs to see how we can reduce those overall costs. But it's one of those complex case by case problems that we have to deal with. But most of the time it's covered, and then we look for patient assistance. And then I'd say about 20% of the time our employers just opt to not cover any of those at all. And then it's moved to a different funding source, but typically that's to the manufacturers.
Okay, and for maybe those on the line that don't know, can you just explain what a Merc plan is quickly?
Are you talking about the catastrophic type plans? Are you talking to me on that one?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
It's just something that came through.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times what we deal with is a lot that will go onto the medical side of things, where the third party administrator will set up a plan to cover high cost medications into some sort of like a catastrophic style plan. Not something that we actually deal with on a day-to-day basis, because once it gets out of the PBM space, we don't actually see a lot of those claims. So we're not really sure what occurs on most of those until the end of the year reconciliation. But a lot of times those are third-party administrator handled plans. But where we deal with the spaces is trying to find those. We've been fairly successful is getting the manufacturer to pay for some, if not all, the medications that are we've deemed, and also the physician is deemed clinically necessary.
Perfect. So if I'm an employer trying to review my PBM spending right now, what are the 2 or 3 things that I need in order to review that?
You need a claims data file, basically a printout of everything that was filled over the last 12 months, if these 12 months is available. and then basically the contract. Sometimes the contract can't be given, as far as through a third party, but at least some of the contract details, as far as what's your administration fee, what fees are out there, what are you paying for that particular service, and then the claims data file. Again, typically takes 10 minutes to get. Once you run the software to get that report for you. But typically those are requested by either at the broker level or at the third party administrator level or direct to the PBM, whoever's managing that particular plan. But get the data, what was spent over the last 12 months, and then the contract.
Perfect. So at this time, we don't have any other questions. So if you do have additional questions, please reach out to myself, reach out to Kyle directly. We obviously want to get all of your questions answered. Thank you, Kyle, for joining us this morning. We appreciate your time and expertise.
Thank you.
Yeah. Our next webinar will be next week, September 24th from 8 to 8:30 again, regarding the importance of an independent TPA. So mark your calendars and we'll be sending out the invite tomorrow. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.